Hello everyone, happy 2022. Let's get things started. Today we're going to look at PiCroft. Now PiCroft is a ready-made way to run Minecraft on Raspberry Pi 3, 3B Plus, or 4. Now, in this case, I'm going to show you not just how to demo it, but also attempt to use it with GPIO pins. Now, in this case, there is some hardware requirements that we need to talk about first. Now, as mentioned, you can only use the Pi 3B, 3B Plus, or 4. Anything from the Pi 2 and below will not work, and I assume that will be the same for the Pi 0W2. You also need an SD card, 8 GB or higher. I'm using a 16 GB card. And also make sure you have a good, or at least decent power adapter. Now, I'm using a 3 amp power supply for my Pi 3B Plus. Also, make sure you have an analog speaker. Now, according to the website, Bluetooth on PiCroft is difficult to get working, so I would not recommend using that. Thankfully, I do have the Bluetooth speaker, but it does connect via 3.5mm audio jack, so that should be good to go. I did test it and it does work, and you'll be seeing that in the demo. You also need a USB microphone. In my case, I have a Jounivo generic USB microphone, and it's not even listed on the supported hardware. Now, optionally, you'll need a USB keyboard, monitor or TV, which I did for setup, Ethernet cable, which I did for the initial setup. And as mentioned, see, it does not have it. And by the way, also, as you might notice, the Google AIY V2 voice bonded is not listed here either. So if you plan to use that, I would caution to make sure that it works first before trying it. But yes, my microphone is not listed here, but it still worked. There's also instructions on how to use the Adafruit voice bonnet, and this is particularly some issues that they ran into, so this is the only way for it to work. Also, I mentioned that Bluetooth audio devices cannot work, and that's specifically because they're not supported by default. And of course, first you have to download the image. Now, use something like Etcher to write the image to the SD card. Then when that's ready, plug in your HDMI monitor, USB keyboard, and Ethernet initially. That's what I would recommend. I did that and it worked. Then make sure you set everything up by starting off with a guided setup. Now, it'll ask you for the guided setup question here. And the answer is yes, you should use guided setup, especially if this is new to if you're new to PiCroft. And that's what I did. Then select your audio output. And in this case, I used option 1, which is the speakers via 3.5mm output. Then make sure to test the volume. I would use 7 because it'll ask you from 1 to 9. 7 is a good choice. Then, the final step will be choosing a input. And in this case, the input I chose was 5. And as you can see, it's unsupported. It's good luck. But in my case, it did work. Now, when you do that, it'll ask you to say something like testing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Make sure you do that. And if it works, you can move on. And if it does not, then you'll have to go to troubleshooting for that. Then for pairing PiCroft, you'll have to pair the first time. Now, the PiCroft client will send you a registration code. It will be spoken to you, and make sure you see, it will make sure you go here on this part so that you can see it on your screen. Then it'll ask you to go to the documentation, and that's important specifically if you're going to add your device. Then, of course, make sure you view the documentation itself. Then you can use the basic skills to get started, such as you can ask it about Abraham Lincoln, the weather, math, and even ask it to make a funny joke. Then, to connect to Wi-Fi, you'll have to use this. This is the supplicant file. Make sure you replace this with your SSID and your password. I should mention 2.4 gigahertz Wi-Fi networks are the only ones that are supported currently, which is really a bummer. But it shouldn't be an issue if you have 2.4 gigahertz Wi-Fi. So no need to worry. Then of course it talks about using enterprise, but in that case that doesn't apply to me, and it probably doesn't apply to a lot of you. And then it talks about the useful commands, and again I will have this on the video description so that you can read it yourself. And it will also talk about GPIO pins, which I plan to get in the next video. But for now that we talked about this, I want to talk about another thing you need to do, and it's this. Now when you go to the MicroUSB service, you need to go to this file using something like nano. So I would say in this case you need to type sudo nano and then that file, and then here make sure you change this 0 to a 1, and then I already have these here, so you will have to change these. And the reason for that, it always defaults to HDMI audio first. So using this will help you use both the microphone and the speaker. I know that's been an issue for some people in the past, so thankfully I was able to find this thanks to other YouTubers. So I just wanted to help others who probably will have an issue with this. So enough talk, let's get to the demo. Hey PiCroft, what is 6 times 4?
Six times 4 is 24.
Hey PiCroft, tell me about Abraham Lincoln.
Let me look up Abraham Lincoln. Abraham Lincoln was an American lawyer and statesman who served as the 16th President of the United States from 1861 until his assassination in 1865.
Hey PiCroft, what's the weather?
Right now, it's broken clouds and 61 degrees. Today's forecast is for a high of 61 and a low of 44.
Hey PiCroft, tell me a joke.
All erase Chuck Norris declares are of infinite size because Chuck Norris knows no bounds.
Okay, it needs to work on its delivery, but otherwise I think it did a pretty good job. And so far it has been a success. Thank you so much for watching. See you guys next time, and happy 2022.